Hello, everybody. All right. So glad that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about fretting hand legato. All right. So, talk about some speed secrets for the fretting hand, some legato exercises, how to increase your fretting hand legato speed on the guitar. So, grab your guitar, take some notes. You're going to listen to some great stuff. I brought in a super awesome guitar player and teacher, longtime friend of mine, Johan Tillgren. Hello, Johan.
Hello, Johan.
Hey.
All right, very
Hello.
good. Very good. So, Johan, we're getting a little bit of an echo on my side. So, when I'm not talking, I'll mute myself. And if you could do the same, that would make it better for the audience. So, before we get started, for everyone here, let us know in the chat who you are, where you're from, okay? And if you have questions along the way, put them in the chat, and we will get to as many questions as we can as we go throughout this live stream here. So, Johan, first question I have for you is, why do you think many people struggle to build their legato speed on the guitar? In other words, like, what are they doing wrong? Why are they not getting it? Why does it take forever? Why are they stuck? What's going on there?
Well, one of the biggest thing I notice in my students is that they think if I just move my fingers in the right way, it's going to sound great and I'm going to be able to play legato really fast. But they often start from the wrong position. So the wrong sitting position, the wrong position of the guitar, and that's going to make it very hard to play fast with legato. So if you sit with, I don't know, your guitar on your right leg very far out and you sit, tilt your back and your thumb above the neck, a bunch of different things, it's going to be very hard to play fast legato. And then some people say, oh, but Yngwie Malmsteen, he can sit down and play really fast. But, well, if you have really large hands, or if you practice it for 12 hours a day for 10 years, then maybe you can get it to work.
Or if your name is Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But the best thing is just to put yourself in a good starting point, and that's going to help a lot. So that's number one.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, a lot of people, they look at their favorite guitar players and they say, well, he does it this way, so it must be the best. Well, maybe they're great despite the technique they're using or the position they're having instead of because of it. So, yeah, that's I mean, I like Marty Friedman, okay, but I'm not going to pick like that, okay? Like his style a lot, but I'm definitely not going to copy how he holds his pick or hold his hand or do any of that stuff. So maybe you can go through what are your top 3, 4, 5 sort of legato speed secrets that you can share with people who want to increase their fretting hand speed, in particular when we're talking about legato, but just speed overall. What go through, help people here. I know people are struggling. I see also we have Ron from Texas, Lars from Sweden, your country. Johan. We have Robert from Las Vegas, Mark from Wisconsin, not too far from where I'm at, and Ronald from Honolulu. So, again, Johan, what are some of the, we would say your top 3, 4, or 5 legato speed secrets here? And before you get into that, just want to remind everybody, if you've got a question, put it in the chat as you hear things. Just put the questions in the chat, and we will take them as we go. So, Johan, what do you got?
Yeah, so the first thing is basically the opposite of what I said before. So just start from the right point. And for that, I recommend to just, have your guitar, if you're sitting down, on your left leg, and then thumb behind the guitar, so it's not above. Because if you have it above the guitar neck, it's going to be, you can't really reach anything, especially with the pinky, it's going to be really hard. So if you want to play these, like really fast, Paul Gilbert style shredder stuff, legato stuff, then you want to start with the thumb behind the neck. This also positions kind of automatically so that your fingers are parallel to the frets, or sort of parallel. It doesn't have to be perfect. Instead of, if you have your thumb like this, then you get weird angles that doesn't really work to build speed. So that's step one. Just get your thumb, and I can show quickly how it looks from the back. So my thumb kind of like this, instead of like this or like this or like this. So kind of like that. And then once you have that, then you can then, the next step is to focus on accuracy. And a lot of people, when they play legato stuff, whether it's 3-note per string stuff or pentatonic stuff, when they pick, they can kind of get it to work because the pick drives a lot of sound to the note, you know. But as soon as they shift to try to do legato, then the accuracy is usually way off. You can't really hide it with a good pick attack. So you might, you know, be slightly off on the fret, so you get a weird note. And the faster you play, the harder it's going to be to hear those things. And then you think, oh, my legato sucks. What's wrong? But it might just be the accuracy. So what I suggest is to focus on two things with the accuracy. And one is just, it's the same for fretting hand technique in general, but it's more important when you do legato, which is to have the finger close to the fret, to the right side of the fret. So I like to think that the fingers should be like a magnet to the fret, not on top of the fret, but slightly before it. And this makes it so that when you play, so let's say play a scale with legato, it will start to sound really clean. So, you know. And I have really high distortion now, so I have to really try to mute all the strings that are not playing, which is also another important part. I'll get to it later. But just that first step of when you do legato, have your thumb behind the neck and then focus on the accuracy. That's going to make a huge difference. So that's the first thing I usually teach.
Yeah, and the other thing about what you just said is that, can you hear me okay, Johan? Johan, can you hear me? I don't think Johan can hear me. There we go.
I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yes.
great, perfect. All right, so Johan, go ahead and, if you don't mind, mute your microphone because we're getting an echo. But what you said about the finger being close to the fret, not only does it help make that sound cleaner, but you don't have to press down as much. You don't have to use as much force because the finger is so close to the fret that the string just goes down nice and easy. But the farther the finger is from the fret wire, not only will the tone maybe not be as clear, but you'll have to press down a little harder to make it clear if it's not clear enough already. So sort of an additional benefit to everything that you're saying there. So what else? What's next? What else can these guys do?
Yeah, so the next thing is that when you play, there's one finger. I usually tell people to, okay, play on the fingertips mostly. So it's not on the flesh of the finger, but on the fingertip. And that's true for almost all fingers, except for one finger, which is the index finger. Because I know people's hands look different, but for me, if I were to play with the fingertip, I can't, these other fingers can't reach to the other frets. So what I do is I play with the side of my finger on the index finger. And this has two benefits. Actually, I think 2 or 3 benefits here. The first one is that when you do that, you know, you're able to reach pretty far because it helps with the stretching, you know. So it kind of serves as a base for other legato things. But the other thing is that when you go with legato across the strings, then it serves as a wall here that mutes string noise. And this is a huge thing, because if you don't do that, it's going to be really messy, you know, really hard to play clean really fast. And that's the first one. So if you play a scale, let's say I do, you know, pull-offs upwards, then if I stop at a note here, then my index finger is muting all the strings below it. So if I play the other strings, they're completely muted. And this makes a huge difference, especially on thicker strings, but you know, anything you're playing. And then if you go back and forth, you know, then this finger becomes really important to mute. So that's one thing. So play on the fingertips, but the index finger plays on the side of the finger. I do know though that some people don't do that. Thomas, do you do something like that when you play?
No, I'm playing pretty similarly to you. You know, when you have the finger is
I
a
think
little
you
bit
may be
more.
muted.
No, I'm not muted. Maybe your speaker is off. I'm definitely not muted. Can you hear me now, Johan? Let me send Johan a little chat. Speaker is off. I'm definitely not muted. So to answer Johan's question, I'm not using my fingertip for something like this. I use a little bit more of the pad on the index finger. Now, one additional benefit to doing it this way, in addition to what, let me make myself a little bit bigger. In addition to what Johan was just saying about having sort of a wall for muting, is that you can stretch your fingers a little bit farther. If you're forcing to use the tip of the index finger, well, then you can still stretch far, but it's not quite as far. Okay. So, and the other thing is, with the ability to open your hand, it allows these fingers to move more easily than if the hand is closed and restricted. They can move okay if the frets are closed, but if you have to start stretching and go on an angle like this, now the hand starts closing this way, and it makes it more difficult to get the speed. You can still play fast, but it's harder because everything gets tighter in your hand. So the more that the hand stays open, the easier it is to move the fingers without, with less resistance. So good points there. What else you got for us, Johan? Keep bringing the goods.
I got a long list here. I really like that open hand analogy, so try to keep the hand open instead of closed. That's great. The next thing is that even though the index finger is great for muting when you're playing, and I guess this is not exactly about how to increase the speed, but this is one of the problems that happen as you increase the speed when you play legato. You start to get all kinds of string noise, as you don't want to be there. So the second way to overcome that string noise is to mute with the right hand. So this is very important in legato. And before I learned this, I just had problems because I used the index finger, but I couldn't really get the muting. But then I learned that you kind of create an opening for each string. So let's say if I played a scale here, so then when you play on the top, on the thickest string here, then the index finger is muting everything below. But as soon as you go one string down, then what happens with the strings above? And those are the strings that we want to mute. So I have two ways. One is I kind of slightly touch with the tip of the finger the string that is right above. So it's something I haven't really practiced. It just kind of happened. That's a small trick that you can use. But that only applies to the string that's right above. And sometimes if you play certain runs, it doesn't work. So that one is kind of a bonus. But the real way to mute the strings above is to use either your palm or your thumb. I usually, when I do legato, I use my thumb to mute the strings above. So when you play a string, now it's nothing with the thumb here, and then on the next string, my thumb lightly touches the string. So it's thumb muting, basically. And this you have to really practice this, because sometimes when you do picking, then it's you may get away with a little bit of inconsistency in the thumb muting. But when you do legato, you have to be really on, like almost pressing your hand against the strings to get that, to mute those thicker strings, or the strings above the one you're playing. So that one I use too. I also use the fingers here, and this is something I learned from you, Thomas. So you play these fingers mute the ones below the one you're playing, and thus the picking hand basically mutes both the strings above and the strings below. And you also have index finger here muting above and below. So it's kind of like 3 or 4 lines of defense, and that's what you need, because if you have really high distortion, and especially let's say you play on stage and everything is moving, you really have to mute mute in a good way. So yeah, this is a huge part about building legato speed. Unless I guess if you play really fast jazz music on a clean tone, then you're not going to need 4 lines of defense to mute that. But if you play any kind of distortion, rock, metal style, then it gets really important.
Yes, that's exactly right. And holding the other fingers in the right hand to mute certainly helps. So right now, I'm not using anything in the left hand to mute. Not even my first finger. It's all being. I'm not saying that I always do it that way, and I do what you said, Johan, which is to mute with the back of the index finger of the fretting hand, definitely. But you can do the muting without if you've got sort of a channel that the string would go through. So if I put this pen here to Earth marker to represent the string that we want to ring out, it's ringing freely in the channel between the pick and my other fingers. So it can vibrate, but all the other strings are being muted. So if I take my left hand and just hit all the strings, you only hear the string I want you to hear, which is, in this case, string 3. And if I have to go to string 4, I just move this little channel over. So it looks like from the side, it looks like this. Between these 2 fingers, that's where the string rings out that I want. And then these fingers are muting the higher strings, the thinner ones, and this one is muting, the thumb is muting the lower strings. Okay, so that's how that works. So if we want to go across strings, the right hand kind of follows along there a little bit. So that, in combination with the muting from the back of the index finger, that keeps things nice and clean. Good. All right, so what else we got here, Johan?
Yes, so next one is fast hammer-ons. So legato is basically 2 techniques. We have hammer-ons, we have pull-offs. Hammer-on when you go up, pull-off when you go down. And one mistake that a lot of people do with hammer-ons is they try to hammer either too little or too much. So if you hammer too little, then you don't really get a note. It doesn't really work. But if you hammer too much, then you waste a lot of force. Maybe, I don't know, I see some people probably use 50% more force than they need. So what I like to think is that if you look at the strings, these are thin metal wires, and your finger, the amount of force it needs to press down the string is very low. The finger is way stronger than the string usually. So what I like to think is just to find the optimal amount of pressure that you need to actually do the hammer-on. And the way to try it is not. Sometimes it may be good, to practice with a clean tone in order to hear things clearly. But if let's say you play rock and you usually play with distortion when playing solos, I like to use distortion to see if I can get a good tone with how little force I need to use to get a good tone from the hammer-on. So let's say if I play 3 notes here. Then I can kind of test how much force I need. So. And it's usually way less than than most people think. So that's one way, just to practice. 3 notes as hammer-ons, like you played. So here I'm just playing notes, fret 9, 10, 12, and I'm picking the 9 every time. So. But you could also hammer everything, so you do just hammer-ons. So that's one way to just get hammer-ons quicker. Then the next one, the flip side, is pull-offs. And when most people do pull-offs, this usually, I mean, sometimes beginners, when they do it, they don't get the flick motion. So pull-offs is, you know, when you have to play a note and then you flick the string, kind of like you're picking the string, but with one of the fretting hand fingers. And beginners usually, you know, do too little. But what I noticed that most advanced people, they do too much. So they do too much of a flick when they do the pull-off. You know? But same thing here, just like with hammer-ons, you only need very little force to create a note. So now I'm going to try to use as little as possible, and it's, you know, and the note is still almost 100% as loud as before. So that's another thing when you practice pull-offs, just get small motions. And then just do that. You don't have to do it fast first. You can just start slowly and then, you know, make it faster over time. But just these using less force in general is huge. Also, if you use too much force, it just, you know, you tire out and you can't play fast for more than 5 seconds. So, you know, less force is great. Yeah, so that's another thing that's very important.
Yeah, cool. So that's good stuff. I want to remind everybody, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. So there is a question that should have been asked, but has not yet been asked. Okay, so I'll point out I'll imagine I'm in the audience and I'm observing and listening to what Johan says, and I'm thinking, oh, he just did something a moment ago that seems a little unusual. That seems like, that's different. It's different than what I do. It's different than what most people do. And what you may have seen was that when Johan was explaining the hammer-ons, okay, when he was picking them, he did not leave his finger down, his index finger. And almost everybody does that. What they do is they'll leave the index finger down. They leave it down the whole time and they do this. Okay, and you can do that, but Johan was not doing that. And I also would not do that. I would pick it up. So again, you could leave it down as an anchor, but why? Why would you anchor? Why would one anchor their finger down? And I ask this question to students, they'll say things like, well, that's what a previous guitar teacher taught me to do. But that's not a reason. Okay. That's not a reason. Okay. And other times people will say, well, I'm going to be coming right back to that finger. So why not leave it down? It's more efficient, they say, to leave it down than it is to pick it up. But actually, it's not more efficient at all. And I'm going to prove it to you just now. When you leave this down and you do a hammer-on again, yes, because it's down, you don't have to move it. So on the surface, it appears that it's more efficient for that finger. And it is. But take your hand in front of your face, wiggle your fingers around, and you tell me which of these fingers moves most freely, which is most coordinated. This finger. So why would we want to do anything to make it easier for that finger when it's these fingers that need the help? Okay. So watch what happens. If we don't anchor this down, okay, what happens is it's easier for the other fingers to move. Take your hand in front of your face and do this. Take your first finger, lock it to your thumb as if you were holding down the fret. Do this. Okay. Everybody do that. You're at home, do it right now. Now, with these fingers, while holding this down, wiggle these other fingers. Is this easy or hard? Now, let go of this and wiggle their fingers. Easy or hard? It's easier, obviously. So by holding this down, thinking I'm going to be more efficient for that finger, yeah, you are, but you're making it harder for the fingers that need the help. These fingers need more help. So we don't want to do anything to close this part of the hand, which makes it harder for these fingers to move. We want the hand to stay open. So take this finger off, wiggle the fingers, and it's really easy now, right? Much easier. Not only can you play faster, but the speed is easier and you won't fatigue. I mean, I can do this all day because it's easier. Not because I can do it all day because I'm good. I can do it all day because it's easy. The technique is easy. It has nothing to do with me. Okay. So that's a thing that Johan showed you. He didn't talk about it yet. Maybe you would have, Johan, but I think that maybe some people would have missed it because no one asked a question about it. And that's, if I was sitting there, I would think, oh, why is he doing that? Why is he lifting it up? Maybe there's a reason. Does Johan have a bad habit, or is there a logic behind this? And there is logic behind it. So if you wanted to add anything to what I said, Johan, please do. But I wanted to make sure that, maybe some people may have missed it, or maybe they saw it, but they didn't realize how important that is or how valuable that could be.
Yeah, definitely. And I see it as trying to have one finger at a time, but it's the same thing, that the index finger is never really left there, unless you do some kind of trill where it's just two notes. Then it might not always be a good idea to trill back and forth with two.
Yeah, on a trill, yes.
So, but other than that, I usually just keep it jumping. If I play some legato lick, then my index finger is definitely jumping up and down. Maybe not so much if I'm, because I usually do a lot of slides, and that's actually the next thing on my list. Is when you use legato, it's one thing to just play it in one position, but one thing, a hack that I use, a secret legato technique, is to use slides a lot. So you can get a lot of speed in one one mode or one scale shape. But what I find is that it kind of, when you change strings, it can sometimes sound a little abrupt, and it sounds a bit harsh sometimes. So either I would try to use less pick and try to just hammer more, like you were doing. But as soon as, if you do a lot of pull-offs, it can sometimes get a little bit harsh in the shifts. So what I do is when I change positions, I use a lot of slides. So let's say I just slide to the next scale shape. And another way I use to make the string changes less harsh is I like to hammer with the pinky finger without picking it. So I can play. So I hammer with the pinky finger. So those two things helps me a lot to get move legato things, and it also helps to be more, I guess, more creative, get more ideas. So slide around and also try to hammer with the pinky finger.
Yeah, and there's an additional benefit to doing the slide, which is when your hand is sliding up or down to a different position, that means that the other fingers aren't having to move. They're not doing any hammer on or pull off. So you actually give your fingers a little bit of a break, and that helps dissipate a little bit of the tension that would otherwise be if you're constantly moving your fingers. With the slide, you just give it a little break. Everything can have an opportunity to relax a little bit more. I mean, I would do the slide thing for musical reasons, not for technical reasons, but there is this additional technical benefit by doing that. Maybe that's what you meant when you said less harsh. Did you mean harsh in sound or harsh on your fingers?
I meant harsh in sound mostly, but what you said about it helping the technique is definitely true as well.
Yeah. Before we go any further, let's take a couple of questions here. Let's take this one. Let's see. How do I stop pulling the high E string off the fretboard during a pull off and vibrato? Well, those are two completely different things. Let me take the vibrato one first, and then Johan, you can talk about the pull off. The way that you get your hand not to come off the fingerboard when doing vibrato is don't pull down. Okay, don't go in that direction with the vibrato. So if we're doing this, right, don't do that. Do vibrato the other way. Now that the string is not going to fall off the edge of the flat earth, right? If you go like this, then you got a problem. So go up, just like you would bend the string up. Okay, same thing. So Johan, you want to tackle the pull-off part of that question?
Sure. Yeah, that downward vibrato sounds great. Yeah. So if about the pull-offs, the thing is, if you hold down a note on the E string and then if you pull down, then of course the string should naturally go outside the earth here. But what you have to do is you have to have a counter force. So you have to push against with the other finger. This is something that Mike Philpott talks about. I don't remember what he calls it, but the other finger serves as a counter force. So a pull-off is always from one finger to another. A hammer-on, we only talk about one finger hammering, so index finger hammers, the other finger hammers. But with pull-offs, there's always two fingers involved. So you play a note, and then when you go to the other note, there's a short, brief moment where both fingers are holding down the string. And in that moment, we want to focus on the finger that the pull-off is going to. That finger should push slightly upward. So it's kind of like a counter force. So one finger goes down and the other one goes up. And this one you can practice in an isometric manner, where you just basically hold those and then you practice pulling the one finger down, the first finger, the middle finger is called here, and then index finger pushes up. So you practice just pushing those counter forces, and when you do that, you kind of get that motion, and then the next thing that happens is that the middle finger here does the pull-off motion down. If you would totally mess this up, it would sound like this, where you play the middle finger, and then the whole string goes down. So you have to do that counter push with the lower finger. So that's basically it.
Yeah, good stuff. So here, think about the pull off this way. If you take your hands, put the pick down, okay? Take your hands and just snap your fingers. When you snap your fingers, what makes the sound pop? Is it a lot of force or is it speed of the movement? It's the speed of the movement. If you go really hard like this and go slow, it doesn't make a sound, right? If the snapping the finger doesn't make a sound. It's this. Yes, you're using a little bit of force, but it's mostly speed that causes that sound to occur, okay? Same thing here. So think about it as snapping your fingers, okay? Don't use a lot of power, because then you start pulling the string down off the fretboard. It's just like a quick little snap, very quick. When I say quick, I don't mean this. We're not talking about, putting a lot of notes next to each other. I mean that when it's time to do the pull off, that happens quickly. It's a quick movement, just like snapping your fingers is. Johan, let's take this next one right now. It's from our buddy Ron Stein. Hello, Ron. Hope you're doing well. Ron says, when playing, for example, 3-note per string scales, ascending, I'm having the hardest time getting the first note on the next ascending string. So I think he means like from string 4 to string 3. To ring out, trying to do a hammer-on from nowhere. In other words, he's not picking the first note of the new string. Do you have any tips?
All right, so let's see. So having a hard time getting the first note on the next ascending string to ring out to a hammer from nowhere. Right. Oh yeah. So this is an issue with the index finger. So if you play, 3-note string scale, usually when I go ascending, so go downwards, I usually pick the next string because it's simpler to get it to happen. But you can do it as a hammer-on as well. So in that case, what happens is, let's say if I play these notes here, and I play the frets 5, 7, 9 on the D string, and then 5, 7, 9 on the G string. Then the thing happens is, once I've played the D string here, this note here, if I go down to the G string, just hammer the 5th fret here, this is what's gonna happen. You have to be really quick to mute the previous string. So this is kind of interesting, that the problem is usually not the strength of the hammer-on in the index finger. The problem is that the previous string is muting. It's not always like this. Maybe for you it's that you just need to practice, hammering harder with the index finger. And if that's the case, then I would just practice doing it unplugged, just trying to get as loud as possible. When I do it with students, I sometimes have them play melodies, just try to hammer a lot. But if it's the other way, that you just don't mute the previous string fast enough, then I would just practice that, because that's usually the issue that I find. Tom Hesse, have you found anything similar with hammer-ons?
Yeah, here's the way that I would approach this, Ron, or for anybody else. I want you to imagine a continuum. Okay, I'm going to minimize you for a moment here, Johan, because I need the full space. I drew here a line while Johan was talking. Okay, so over here is picking. Okay, this means I'm not referring to your actual picking. I mean, if you were picking notes. Let's take Ron's question about picking scales. You're picking the notes, and then you're fretting the notes as if they were being picked. So I'm talking about doing this. Okay, if you were picking all the notes, how much pressure would you use in your fretting hand? Well, probably very little. You'd use very little tension over here. Okay, but if you were doing heavy hammer-ons and pull-offs, you would probably use a lot more force. Okay, you probably push down harder and be a lot more tension. Okay, now when most people learn and practice legato, they start over here. They think, oh, I've got to use a lot more power and tension to make the notes clean. So they start way over here. This line represents force. Okay, a little bit of force, a lot of force. Okay, a little bit of tension, a lot of tension. So people the mistake they make is they start over here, and then they maybe try and work a little bit this way to get a little bit less pressure. All right. And maybe they end up kind of over here somewhere in terms of how much pressure and tension they're using. But what you can do is you could start on this side. Okay. So you play your little scale or scale fragment, pick all the notes. So your fretting hand is using very little pressure. Okay. Then and I'll demonstrate this in a minute. Then you work your way this direction. Okay, you take your picking hand away and you say, how little tension can I use? How little force can I use and still get the legato sound, still get them to the notes to ring clearly? So it's a difference in philosophy. If you start here, you'll be able to do the hammer-ons and pull-offs faster and easier with way less tension. If you start here and try and work your way this way, it's going to be harder, it's going to be slower, and you're going to fatigue. So let me show you what this means in action, okay? Let's take the example that Johan was just talking about, okay? So if we're doing this, I'm picking all the notes, as you see. So if you're at home, you got your guitar in your hands, just pick all the notes. And notice how little pressure you need to play the notes in the fretting hand. Not a lot, right? Now, without changing anything over here, change nothing over here. Stop picking. Take your hand, put it up behind your back, okay? And just do the same thing. I'm using exactly the same amount of force as I was before, as if I was picking. Nothing's changed. Take the pick away. Okay, so I'm on this side of the spectrum. I'm way over here. I'm not over here, starting with heavy hammer-ons and pull-offs, lots of force, lots of power, lots of tension, and then trying to lighten up. I'm starting with the minimum amount of force, minimum amount of tension and pressure, and then just moving a little bit this way to make sure the notes come out cleanly. So it sounds like, Ron, I'm not sure where you are on the spectrum here, but start here, take the picking hand away, and just add a little bit of more pressure in just to make sure that the sound is clear. I'm playing, my fingers are moving the same way as if I was picking it up. Take the pick away. Put the pick back in. Take it away. There's no difference at all. It's the same thing. Okay, so that's something that I think may help with this issue and just with legato in general, especially with the hammer-ons. So, Johan, you got maybe one more for us?
Yeah, it actually ties in very good to that thing. So one huge thing when you do legato is that when you do the only hammer-ons technique, that's a good way to practice technique in general and mostly to get really fast legato. So what I like to do is only hammer-ons and pull-offs, so no pick involved. The only problem is if you do only hammer-ons pull-offs, really quickly, even if you're good at muting, you use the channel and the index finger, muting is going to be a problem real quick. So what actually is a common thing that I saw you, Thomas, used as well, is that you basically mute the things with your right hand. So you cross your arms. I call it the cross arms technique. So you mute the strings down here. You could use, I guess, what's it called, a fret wrap or a old sock, maybe not so healthy, but something to mute the strings down here, so that you can do all that things. But this is a typical technique. So you basically hold the strings here to mute it, and then you can even do like arpeggios and all kinds of stuff. Oops. To get really cool sounds, and this is legato. This is just only the fretting hand, but the muting, you can kind of get it to work with the normal types of legato muting, but it's, for me, if I really want to do some legato only thing, I usually just mute like this. There's some other guitar players that does this, like Joe Satriani does this sometimes. When he does arpeggios with that kind of stuff. So this is some more advanced speed secrets, but it's not that hard. You just mute here. What I do is I usually mute with my middle finger. So I still hold my pick, but I put the middle finger on the string, kind of like this. So I have the index finger behind the neck and then the middle finger on the strings. So that's how I mute it. Some people, they take away the pick and then just hold the whole guitar like this. But a quick way that I found is just to use the middle finger. This is a cool technique you can use, and it's also, even if you think it looks weird or you're never going to intend to use it in the style you play, it's still a good way to practice legato technique, because you don't really have to focus on the muting while you do it. So it's one other way to practice legato.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a. Have you Thomas? Have you done that technique a lot? Or
Yeah, just well, mainly for just demonstrating something, or for just working on having the super light touch, not worrying about muting in any of the regular way. So sure, absolutely. Let's take one more question here. I think this will be pretty quick to answer. Brittany Sword. Sounds dangerous. Brittany Sword asks, will my forearm get stronger as I practice? I've been playing for 20 years and have never been able to break 140 beats per minute. Well, I mean, I'm not sure what 140 means, if that means 140 at 16th notes or 140 at sextuplets. 140 sextuplets, that's pretty fast. 140 at 16th notes, that's moving along at a pretty good speed too. But you don't need forearm strength, because one of the things we've been talking about is not using a lot of power, a lot of excessive power. More power is not going to help you. If that was the case, the fastest guitar players in the world wouldn't be like skinny dudes. Okay. They would be huge muscle. It'd be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, power lifters, although we do know a power lifter that plays really fast. But having additional strength, I mean, okay, you've got to have a little bit of strength. Okay. But a grown woman is plenty strong enough to play just as fast as anybody else, because we're not relying on power to do this. I'm using so little. If we go back to this, okay, I'm using so little power that adding more power isn't going to make me play any faster. Okay, just going to make me tired quicker. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about, I mean, unless your forearms are that big, okay? If you've got a forearm of that size, like a pencil, then we might have a problem. But if you're just a normal person, you'll be just fine. I wouldn't seek to build up forearm muscles just so you can play legato faster. The limitation you're experiencing is not caused by a lack of strength. It's for sure something else. Any thoughts on that, Johan?
yeah, I agree. And also, sometimes the more forearm strength you have, that can be a hinder, because then you think that, oh, if I have the strength, so now I can use it. But sometimes it's better to not have it. I mean, it's good for other things in life, but yeah, it can be a hinder too.
Yeah, I mean, my forearms are pretty big. I've got a pretty meaty forearm, but I'm using as little of it as I can when playing guitar. I mean, very, very little. So
Yeah.
more power is not going to be the solution here. So yeah, awesome. So to wrap things up, I've got something pretty cool for you guys to download. You can check this out for free. Okay, this is a video. It's a masterclass here. That well, see if I can. There we go. Now you see me. Okay, this is a video masterclass. It's about an hour long, a little longer. It's pretty in depth. It's called Total Tension Control, and what this does is it helps you to play guitar with the minimum amount of tension possible, because tension is the enemy of guitar speed. If you use excessive tension, it's going to slow everything down, make everything harder, and you're going to fatigue quite easily. Now, there are 9 types of tension, or 9 sources of tension that one could have. Most guitar players have about 5 or 6 different types, but they're only aware of maybe 1 or 2. They're usually aware when their forearm tenses up or something. So in this masterclass, totally free, you can download it at the link that you see on the screen. You're actually going to identify which ones you have and then eliminate them, or at least severely reduce all 9 sources of tension by the time the class ends. It's a live recording. You can check it out. It's totally free for a limited time. And it will not only help you with your legato playing, but really with everything, with your picking, 2-hand synchronization. All of that stuff becomes easier when you're playing with a lighter touch and you're not hindered by, using excessive force, and that's just slowing everything down. So you can check that out, toms.net/total-tension-control. All right. So, Johan, great stuff. Thanks for hanging out here today and
Thanks.
for sharing all the awesome stuff. I wish I had learned the stuff that you were talking about, 40 years ago when I started playing guitar. I might have been a lot better, a lot faster. But a lot of the stuff I had to learn the long, slow, hard way through a lot of years of experience. So thank you for everyone who hung out here today and asked some really good questions and who was hanging out and checking out. So thank you, Johan. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next time.